Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to WillCast. Thank you for tuning in as always. I appreciate you liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. Brooks, Elms, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in or joining me.
I am very happy to be here.
Um, you followed me on Twitter out of what seemed to be nowhere. I was kind of surprised because I actually did not know of you until you followed me and I kind of looked into what you did. I saw that blue check mark next to your name and I kind of freaked out. Well, who's this guy? Why does he want to follow me? And so I checked you out and looked you up on YouTube and saw that you had appeared on Film Courage, which is a podcast. I guess you could call that a podcast too, right? Or
Sort of. I mean, it's a YouTube channel. I think they're pretty much based there.
yeah, a YouTube interview kind of style conversation
Yeah.
that I really enjoy as an aspiring filmmaker. And I really enjoyed the conversation you had on there about writing and about having fun with what you do in your work. So, can you, for the people who might not know who you are, give us a brief introduction to what you do?
Yeah. I am a working Hollywood screenwriter that also loves to help other writers. And I've been at the game my whole life, writing, directing, producing stuff, first with my friends, and then I studied at NYU Film School. I wrote, directed, and produced a few features. And these days, I mostly write screenplays and help other writers. And I love it. I loved it when I was a kid. I love it now. So, and what I find in that, in that interview that I did, this idea of allowing the process to be fun, it's um, it's really not a nice to have thing. It's an essential thing to really tap into because it just makes the process more sustainable, your success more sustainable, and it also differentiates you from other people.
Mm. And you say you love helping new screenwriters. I assume that's why you followed me and you hit me up on Twitter asking me where I was in my screenwriting journey, and that's kind of how
Yeah,
we started talking.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have a robot that goes out and follows
Uh,
people who are interested in screenwriting. Either you tweeted about it or you're following a screenwriting related account, and then then people do what you do. They go, oh, who's this guy? And they go and they click through, and if they like my content, we sometimes get into a conversation. So
mm,
um, yeah, it's been great. I've done that for a little while, and it's really fun to meet people. I mean, I the way I see it is, again, it comes from this place of so much joy, and there's a lot of ideas I like to put out there just for free, and that's fine if people can like them or not like them or whatever. And then there's some stuff I put out there that costs a little bit of money, and people can like that. And if people are like, oh my god, no, I like that, then there's programs I have that are like premium. I'm probably the highest paid screenwriting coach in Hollywood, at least that I know of. Um, and the great thing about that is because I get the best results, so but it forces me to keep getting those results. So money is a really interesting thing because I started when I first started out like helping people. I was helping my friends and making movies, and I started a writers group in Hollywood with a couple friends, and it was very sort of like no, everything's free, no dues, no nothing, it's gonna be
mm.
free, passion center. That was great. It was really wonderful. And there's a place for all of it. I think the ecosystem these days, there's some stuff that really is best that it's free. There's some stuff best that it's low cost, and there's some stuff best that it's premium.
Mm.
And the beauty of a creator sort of choosing which box and what price is really great. And it's just as long as you have the right price and the right value return, it works beautifully. So when I realized, oh, if I charge more money, I have to show up differently, and I'm getting them way different results. That was really thrilling for me, as opposed to when I was teaching a class at UCLA Extension, which isn't much money and isn't it's academic for good and for bad.
Mm.
But when I was like, and I just was just craving to make a bigger impact on people. I go, what if I really make a difference? Because I've been at this game for 30 years, and I've got all sorts of ways I can help people. I also have the other thing that sets me apart is I have a background in personal growth, like men's groups and things. So I do,
Mm.
I do,
Interesting.
uh, yeah. So when I realized that, I was like, I got this whole background, like, 30 years of psychology and therapy and different modalities of just personal growth. And when I combined them to that, plus being a professional screenwriter, I combined them together, and I was like, oh, if I'm basically a life coach for screenwriters, I can make a massive impact on people, and I just loved it. I mean, I liked teaching at UCLA. I love life coaching screenwriters as much as I love writing my own screenplays.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
What's the difference you feel between teaching academically versus the way you teach now?
I mean, it's you know, I mean, a Ferrari and like a scooter.
Okay. Is it that
I
different?
mean, I mean, because just you think about it, right? So traditional education is basically asynchronous learning, um, codified. I don't know if that's the right word, but like there's good intentions. There's it's a teacher. I built a curriculum and I built a great curriculum, but how, it's the right information at the right time that makes us
Mm,
learn most powerfully.
yeah.
And academia by its very nature is not giving you the right information at the right
Mm,
time. It's all ballpark. So any given 10 classes on any subject, you're losing a significant portion of those people. Some of it's too high, some of it's too low. So they say you teach to the middle. So like everybody's kind of losing. It's just it's a totally old school way of thinking about how learning happens, because
mm,
learning happens inside us, of course. And so when you really bring the interactivity of like the internet into education, you have this explosion of online education programs, which are way, way, way better than traditional education. Now, there's traditional education, is also great. There's I know lots of instructors that teach at those places. They're really smart, they're really great, they know the craft, and those the curriculum or wherever are tried and true. So there
yeah.
is value there. I'm not saying there's no value, but when you look at how much the top ones charge and the value they get, and again, it's how much, what are you paying and how much are you getting back.
Yeah.
um the value really kind of breaks down. In Europe, you guys are pretty good about having not being too much out of pocket, so that's not some bad options. If you can get a scholarship, or if you have money, then those are decent options, but they're not even the best options. Like getting some sort of life coaching is so good, whether you're doing it in your career or out, because it's just completely tailored to exactly where you are, the moment by moment. And a lot of times what happens is, like, for wherever you're at in your sort of storytelling career, the thing that's probably holding you back from the next level has something to do with some sort of threshold of intimacy, or something like that, right? So there's you're doing stuff at a certain level and it's good and it's getting responses, but if you go deeper, you will probably hit people in a deeper way, and maybe even in comedy or whichever way you want to go. But like, if you're in a coaching relationship, you can get those dots connected. They're in you to connect, but it's the best way I've seen, and I get coached myself, and it's phenomenal. It's because we you know what to do already, Patrick. And the game is, what's the best way for you to realize that vision? And you can watch books and watch videos and have conversations with peers, but if you actually get coached, they can take you very specifically and go, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? And then you go, oh, I didn't even think to ask that question. Then you ask it, you solve it, and now your work skyrockets. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about education, especially with people from different parts of the world. I've talked to a lot of my podcast guests about education, actually, and
Mm-hmm.
film school was something that I looked into in America, actually, but
What programs did you check out? Look at
I saw, oh man, it's quite a few years ago, but I looked into one in Florida.
Full Sail in Florida.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And it, the price, the tuition was just overwhelming, especially from someone who comes from Denmark, where education essentially is free, right? We
Yeah,
actually get
yeah,
paid to go to school
that's
here,
great.
which is completely backwards from America, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, but it's better. I think that approach is better. Again, even there's two things, right? There's certainly the price in America, which is bonkers. Again, bonkers, because if you're paying X and you get more than X back, awesome. Whether that's 100,000 or a
Hmm.
million or a billion or $1, whatever it is, you just want to get more than you put out, right? Um, so that's one thing, the price part of it. The other part of it is just the structure of it. Traditional education tends to have, again, it's like, oh, we're the instructors, we have it, walk through this path, and then we'll test you. And it's a real clunky way to really learn. You're really it's just the inefficiency of it compared to like a coaching experience or a small group learning experience. There's significantly better ways, and and I think, and you see there's a real surge in online education programs.
Do you think we will slowly move towards only being educated online from online education?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think in person is wonderful. I mean, you just get different things. Look, I loved my at my years at NYU Film School, just being that age and being around there and being like I'm totally devoted to learning stuff. And I didn't I loved intellectual discussions and some of the classes I took that were outside of the film program. I hated being, required to take those classes.
Mm,
So, um, uh, because I've always had very strong feelings about education, because I knew that so much of what I was learning that really felt good to me and was making an impact on people had nothing to do with what I was learning in school. And um, that drove me crazy, because the last thing I'll say about it is because I'll talk on the subject too much,
yeah.
but like, to me, requiring another human being, these kids, to be in a certain place, to study a certain subject in a certain way at a certain time, I think it's profoundly problematic, um, because when people are, if they're completely neglected and they're left on the street, they're in trouble, right? But if they're given an assortment of resources, like caring older people that can help them, and it's more of an on-demand type education experience, that's phenomenal. The To me, that's the best. Being neglected is trouble. But what traditional education does is, like, you got to be here, you got to study this, you got to do how you have to do it. It's just very, very narrow, and ends up, the vast majority of people don't have. It's so it's it teaches them that their passion doesn't matter. That's the effing
Yeah.
problem.
Hmm.
Their passion doesn't matter. How they structure their existence doesn't matter. Somebody else is imposing that on them. These are really fundamental existential problems, and yet it's ubiquitous. Like, what's interesting is, like, most of there's these schools that do it differently. There's maybe, I don't know, across the world, 300, maybe 500 of these schools. I think there's one, I've known one, about one in Denmark, but they let the kids basically completely learn what they want when they want to learn it. It's completely student driven. Um, but what's interesting is these schools have been around for a while and they haven't really caught on. So there's weird people like me that really like them, or there's kids that are really struggling in traditional education, and they kind of, that's how most of those schools happen. They're wired a certain way, and they're having a tough time in traditional schools, and they're kind of drawn to schools like that are a safe haven. But in my mind, just by what I've learned about sort of motivation and success and stuff, that should be the standard, um, because everybody would learn better when you have more choice. Um, because and what happens in those schools is those kids aren't forced to learn to read. There's a wide range of them, but the ones that I like best, the kids, they basically show up and it's recess all day long. They basically play all day
Mm.
long, and at a certain point, they're like, "Look, I want to play this video game. And I need to read stuff. Teach me how to read."
Yeah.
And they're like, "All right." And then they learn to read in like a couple of weeks, and that's it. And then they're off. So to me, that's so much more in the flow of how human nature works. And so when I actually coach writers and creatives, I'm always thinking about them and their power and their specialty, and how, what their greatness is all about, and how to, and sometimes they're really already good at this and that, and I just get out of the way, with that, and I go, okay, yeah, I mean, it's really important to totally honor and anchor in their greatness. Like, there was a guy that joined my program. He has 3 million followers online, really amazing at short form content, and and I worked with him to basically write a TV pilot for Hollywood. Um, and it was great because he, had a deep sense of his audience, but knew this box and not like the bigger box. So it was really fun for me to like, I didn't have to teach him about voice. I didn't have to teach him about like there's a
Mm.
lot of things that other screenwriters don't have, but he had in spades because he was already a high level professional creative that has Hollywood all over him. So working with him
Yeah,
was really
a-
really fun.
and I think that that goes again to show that he would benefit a lot more being taught by you than going to film school, perhaps, because he would probably get bored because he already knows so much, right?
In fact, he wasn't even drawn because my program has one-to-one and then does have group calls too, because there is value in synchronistic learning, right? But the group calls aren't curriculum based because it's too slow. My group calls are intense Q&A. Like, what's your biggest problem? So if you're on my group call, and I've got one in a couple hours, it'll be like, okay, it'll be maybe a dozen people in my program. What's the biggest burning issue? It's either mindset or craft or career strategy. Well, I had this conversation with this producer and I don't know what to do, or I'm stuck on my second act and I don't quite what's going on, or like I just keep feeling like an imposter or whatever it is. I go deep and then I make teaching points for everybody.
Mm.
So what you get in that experience is a group learning experience that's asynchronistic. So it's not exactly what I think. Like if I'm working with you one to one, it's like what I think is going to be most powerful for you in this moment. When you come to the group call, there's a synchronistic quality to it. You may people Some of the people are going to be where you are, some of the people are going to be ahead, some of the people are going to be behind, and you're just kind of learning and planting seeds for later or anchoring in what you had before. So there's real value there too. But like a guy like him, he liked it when the company, but that wasn't, he really just wanted the one-on-one because he's got his community already.
Mm.
So it wasn't a big draw for him, which was interesting. Then there's like an online discussion group too, so people can kind of, but like that's, again, it's like, and I don't I don't care. I mean, I'm here to help and serve. I mean, he did an amazing job in the program, and it was perfect the way he did it. And the other thing with my program is he can go back. It's for life. Like an academic program is like 2 years or 4 years. Mine is like life. Like you get me for 5 months, and then you're in my community, and
Mm.
then so he could come back. So he could go out to Hollywood. Maybe the show gets set up, then he gets roughed up, and he's trying to do another thing. He comes back, he comes on my group calls, he gets, because the energy of my group calls comes from the best creative place. Yes, we're in a high profile business and blah blah blah, and there's lots of money involved and whatever, but like if we don't come from that same spark, that when you pick up your phone and you make something, we're in trouble.
Mm.
And a lot of times when people do get success in the business, they win some award or whatever, they start shifting their mindset from when they got in. So it's really important that my program it's a stabilizing, energetic place for people just to get recharged, have fun, learn about the craft, wherever that, or if they're already good at something, sharpen up their craft. Because just because you broke through at one point doesn't mean your skills will atrophy if you're not actively using them.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I want to circle back to something you or what you said about in the school, they don't teach you that your passions matter. This is
yeah.
something I've actually thought about quite often because, as harsh as it sounds, I think it probably is important that not everybody is chasing their dreams and that we do have people like construction workers, like the people who hold the world together is essentially with those important tasks, right? I mean, I can't I don't
So
know.
you so so you so why can't people be in love with construction work?
No, no, but
Why
that
would that not be a passion?
no, of course, and that's what I was about to say. Of course, there are people who love construction work, which is awesome. If they do construction work, they love construction work. That's amazing, awesome. But I think there are people that there are obviously a lot of people that hate their jobs. A lot of people.
Well, actually, I did a poll on Twitter about this. It was it was basically I think the four categories were hate, okay, like, or love. Those were the four, and it was only like 10% loved what they were doing.
Yeah.
And then maybe 20-30% kind of liked it, but it was a good 50% that either were like, yeah, this is I'm punching the clock, or I actively effing hate it. And that's a fascinating stat. Like, what? You guys we get to choose whatever we want to do. We can choose something that makes a lot of money. We can choose nonprofit. We can choose whatever we want. But our traditional education system churns out people who only 10% are actually doing what they really love doing. And I think that is because of exactly what you said. It's an existential problem because they say what you care about doesn't matter. You can do that after school or on recess or lunchtime or whatever. What's really important is this other thing. Yeah, but what if I don't like that other thing?
Mm.
Oh no, it's important. You're going to need this as an adult, which is bullshit. You don't need it. So like you know that it's bullshit, and you're going through that experience, going, they're saying this is important, but I can feel that it's not important, and they're saying my feelings aren't important. It's a total, uh, again, and it's not like there's some conspiracy. These are people doing their absolute best, and teachers have it though. I feel for them because they love helping students, and they just they've put themselves in a situation where it's an impossible situation for them to do really well because almost every lesson in every class you're going to be ahead of some people, behind some people, and so you're teaching to people that are just bored
Yeah.
or behind or something, and it's and that and existentially it really f's us up because it just gives us a sense of, well, because Bob Dylan said 20 years of school and they put you on the day shift, right? Well, what the hell did they teach you? They didn't teach you anything.
Mm.
What they need to teach is, what is your passion? Is it art? Is it business? Is it this? Is it that? And then from there, from what your passion is, what does the market want? Because you could be really passionate about, let's say, eggplants, but like if nobody cares about eggplants, then like, okay, that's a problem. You're not going to be able to feed yourself. But like, so what are you passionate about? What do other people want? And then you find that nexus. And to me, the educational system that helps people find that nexus is the best possible. And our system doesn't do that at all. Traditional education basically goes, we know what's important for you. We're going to tell you what to learn, when to learn it, and we're going to force you to memorize stuff so that we know that you've learned this bullshit.
Mm.
It's terrible. It's so fundamentally terrible. And I think that's exactly why you have so few people living from a passionate place all day long. And so many people downright effing miserable
Yeah.
because they feel trapped.
I think and I want to clarify, I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing construction work, of course.
You're gonna get all this hate mail from me.
Yeah,
What do you mean? I
exactly.
like it.
But I think construction work, let's just take that for as an example. I think that is one of those jobs that people default to
Mhm.
when they don't choose to follow their passion. It's complete speculation, of course. But what I'm trying to get at is, if everybody followed their passion, do you think a lot of the essential work that we need in this world, like construction work, for example,
Taking out the garbage. I mean, something that's even worse. Construction is really creative and interesting, right? But something like taking out the garbage, or and I'm telling you, it is because what happens is the market forces at a certain point. We're like, there's garbage piling up. We need people to do this. The money will then come up for it. I will pay more money because I'm getting more garbage.
mm,
So I think that the that aspect of capitalism, and I think Europe's approach to capitalism and sort of socialist democrat. I think you guys have the balance better than America for sure. But there are truths that happen with markets emerge from human desires. And so like if a community needs the garbage taken care of, there it will get taken care of. Nobody needs to be forced to do it.
mm,
Market forces will emerge and basically the price will go up. And at a certain point, somebody's like, you know what? For that much money, I could get into, I could get into taking out the garbage.
mm,
I mean, there was that one TV show called like Dirty Jobs. I don't know if you ever seen it, but it was like the nastiest, craziest cleanup jobs or whatever. And again, you have to understand it's like the Zen thing. It's everything we're doing is chopping wood, carrying water. It doesn't effing matter. What matters is we are a soul and we're showing up and we're doing something. And the way that we do it is what brings our which it fills out our experience of being alive. And the way we do it for somebody else and help them fill out their experience of doing alive. So the monks in some place would literally sit on a cushion all day long and just breathe and in a very, very super subtle way, sort of experience life that way. And then when they needed to get stuff done, they would chop wood, they would carry water, but they would do it in a way that just filled out their experience of being alive.
Mm.
And so when you take that same principle and you put it into like modern society, whether you're telling stories or you're working at the supermarket or you're teaching people, whatever you're doing, um, it's the way that you do it that really matters. And so the way that traditional education structures the existence for the people is what's profoundly, I feel like, lopsiding society, to the point where you get results like I did on Twitter, where you get only 10% really making a living from their passion. And I think I don't think it could be 100%, but I think it could be 80%.
Mm.
If these schools that I've seen, that the success I've seen in schools were more widely spread, and I think it's probably going to happen, I don't know, 100 years, 50 years at some point. It's weird to me that it hasn't caught on right away because it seems so obvious to me, but most people don't see it the way I am, so I know I'm an
Mm.
outlier. But my feeling is, I think human beings, the capacity of them, you probably have, well over 50% could easily be living in basically a flow state most of their day, being really serving. And they just, and the things that other people, that's how, one thing with this, people say, you're like, well, what about the things that people don't want to do? But like, if you think, it reminds me of how people think about movies, right? I hate that movie, I love that movie. It's subjective.
Mm.
You and I might
Of
agree on a lot of
course.
stuff, right? So what one job that somebody's like, oh my God, that's the worst job ever. There's another somebody's like, that's my dream
Of
job.
course, yeah.
So yeah, so like there's so many people and there's so many efficiencies if we get out of the way and let people develop the way, we all start in flow state. Infants are flow state. Toddlers are in a state of flow and openness, and then it gets crammed out of them when we say, do this, jump through this hoop,
Hmm.
blah 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 blah, and then you get them out of the present moment, and you fundamentally mess up their experience of being alive, and it's terrible. And then they just they just, what happens is you undervalue who you are and your
Yeah.
real gifts, because they were said, look, your what your passions are don't matter, but the truth is that's actually what matters most.
Mm.
So it's an absolute, terrible terrible system to my mind.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Do you think though there is a danger personally to monetizing your passion or your art? Because sometimes I feel like for people it stops being fun when it turns into a job and when it starts feeling like work, like something you have to do, quote unquote.
Well, it starts. I mean, who's making that choice?
It's the individual.
There you go. Right. It's how you do it. So there's this, radio guy, Howard Stern. I don't know if you met him. He would, so, or not met him, but know him. But he did this thing that was really funny, years ago, when he was, like, now he's on Sirius where there's no commercials, but he was on this other platform where he had to do these commercials, and it was so funny because he's known for being very, like, unfiltered. He would say crazy things, and he just, and really, have outrageous conversations. And then he part of his job was reading these ridiculous ads, but he, my friend, would totally embrace it as part of just the kabuki theater of life.
Hmm.
So he would go, oh, this pasta, you guys have to have it, it cooks up el dente every time, it's the best pasta ever. But he said it like wholeheartedly, and it was absolutely ridiculous and wonderful, because, so, money is a neutral force. It's like I said before, you want to give, and then get back more than you give. um and it's a wonderful bonding force. If you do something for free, um you often get what you pay for. Not always. There's always some sort of bartering, there's always some sort of trade that goes on. There's some people that, that I'll talk to, that, they can't, I'm again, I so much of the stuff I give out there for free, so there's lots of stuff you can learn from, but like some of the stuff is really pricey. And so some of the people that want some sort of mentorship, um but they don't have the money, I send them to this, there's a place that, on Facebook, where they can get free mentorship, from industry professionals. And I'm happy to do it, because there's a whole ecosystem here. Those people that want to do free mentorship, they're basically doing a favor. They're having a couple coffees, and you're getting what you pay for. That's the whole
Mm,
thing. If you pay significant money for a coaching program, you damn well make sure you get that money, that value back, and then
mm-hmm,
some. So money is a really wonderful way to challenge us to rise and deliver if we embrace it that way. If we see money as like the root of all evil, or you're doing it for the money but you hate it, that's where the problem comes in. But my friend, guess where we're trained to learn how to put up with something we don't like. That's that traditional education. That's
yeah,
exactly that's what they're really teaching us.
yeah,
They go, oh, we're teaching these academics. No, fuck you. You're teaching me to hate my life,
yeah.
to do something that I don't care about all day long, and then tell me this lie that it's important for me when it's not. It's terrible.
Mm.
So, anyway, does that answer the question? I keep coming back to that subject.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
get me from it.
No, no, it's perfect. Do you think that everybody is capable of monetizing their passion? Because it's, as you said before, it's finding that nexus, right? It's finding what is
Yeah,
both fun and there is also a market for. But
yeah.
it, so sometimes I often think about is what I like to create. Would people even care about that? Could I even sell this?
Yeah. It's a great question. And that feeling of who wants what I'm interested in comes from that conditioning of what you care about doesn't matter. What we tell you matters,
Mm,
which is you have to get that out of your head because it's the opposite. Um, so so no, not everybody can be a mass storyteller, and not everybody can be a professional athlete, and not everybody can be whatever. But like I know, a couple special needs kids, because I have two kids, and I coach them in basketball and soccer, and I love it. And so I sometimes I run across those kids. I mean, those kids are not going to be president. Those kids are not going to be a professional athlete. Almost none of the kids I've coached, and in fact, none of the kids I've coached will be professional athletes, right? Um, uh, but like those kids could be, and when I put them on my team, they are awesome members of my team. I run so, but I don't ask them to score 20 points in a game. I ask them to set a screen. Just
mm,
basically stand there and let the guy bump it because that's his capacity. And when he does it, he's proud. This is great. I ask him to get rebounds. I ask him to do things that's totally fitting for his capacity. And that's the magic when you basically you we all have our own different sort of relationship with the universe, and we are a match for the universe. The universe is a match for us. So you just find your place of fulfillment in that way. So that's the way I see it. And I also, one thought for you is you know worry less about like what other people, and are they going to find their way. It's like what you want to worry about is you, is
mm,
like, what is it that I'm doing that I really love? And then what's great about you and your generation, you just test it. Like, I think this is an interesting clip, put it out there, the internet
mm.
will tell you. They'll go, yeah, no, not really, or they'll troll you, or they'll be like, oh my god, this is pretty interesting, or wow, I sent it to 10 friends.
Yeah.
Right, that is the measure. And again, but what's important though is you don't want to tie up your identity with that response. That's really important. You don't be like, I'm a piece of crap if I don't get 5 likes or whatever.
Yeah.
You just you create from the place of loving it, and then like a scientist, you're going, that's interesting. I loved it. I love to hear, what does the marketplace think? And then you kind of just look at the engagements, and whether it's great, or you're just studying, like literally whatever that response is, you're just curious about it. Oh, they loved it, that's interesting. Oh, they hated it, that's interesting. Oh, they were kind of indifferent, that's interesting. What can I do differently that still sets my heart on fire, but actually brings more people and gives them more joy? We are there in service to them and ourselves at the same time. And so when you get those things working together, that's how you get to that next level,
Mm.
because they'll go, man, I need Patrick Will. You're this content's amazing. I want you are singular in your vision, or you're special, or I just want to work with you because you are eliciting these feelings in me. So more, I want more of your stuff. That makes
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. If there was ever a time to monetize your passion, today's the day because of the internet, right? You can reach so many more people, like infinitely
Yeah,
more people than you could back when
yeah,
the internet wasn't a thing.
right. That's right. So one of the things I really admire and it excites me about your generation is because you guys have the opportunity to as you're coming up finding your own voice, experiment with audience in a way that's way beyond than when I started, when it was really before the internet.
Something that I actually discussed this with the previous podcast guest, Matt from Red Delta Project. He's a fitness dude. Uh, do you think that everything should be fun?
Oh, it's a great question. Um, it really depends on how we're talking about the word fun, right? So, breaking my leg, not fun. But uh, choosing a powerful mindset in that experience, settling myself down so the pain is excruciating, but maybe slightly less excruciating. Um, Taking care of myself, communicating my needs, appreciating the people that are helping me, um, focusing on recovering as so it's so I casually use the word fun a lot, and a lot of the times that's actually a really good word for the way I feel most of the day. And other times when it's something that's a little more challenging like that, a word like fun doesn't quite fit. Fun
Mm,
feels a little too surface. It's more like um it's like it's like challenge and satisfaction, and like like a good like workout session, or a good like there's times when we have this primal hunger to bang, for like things to be to kind of hurt, or like if you ever get like deep tissue massage, it was like, oh, it
mm,
hurt. They call it like delicious discomfort,
mm-hmm,
right? So that's absolutely a part of um, life experience that's really good. And but here's the thing: this is Joseph Campbell would say this. That's the most important time to say yes to it. Like, oh, this didn't turn out, the relationship didn't turn out, the money didn't turn out, whatever. Yes, yes. What was my role in it happening that way? How did I create this life for myself? Yes, I embrace it. Yes, and there is a fun in that, but it's more of a it's like a vitality. It's like it's like a craving and a lust for life is sort of are words that are kind of better than the word fun. Um, all that being said, though, um, when writing stories, and developing stories and then telling them at scale, I don't. There's times when you need a little bit of that sort of like let's get in here and
mm,
like explode it. But for the most part, um, like 95% of the time it's easy breezy, playful. It feels like when you use the system that I lay out, it's working when it feels like it's writing itself. It's like
mm,
you're not doing it, just comes. The ideas just come. It's easy, effortless flow. um and when you're not in that state, um you're just not developing as powerfully as you could or as quickly as you could. It's
mm,
not wrong. It's just so but the people, they're like hard work and blah blah blah. My feeling is they are, if they're successful and they're saying that, they're successful despite that that energy. They're actually driving with the brakes on and still succeeding, which is pretty amazing. When
mm,
you drive with the brakes off, you're in a flow state. You're more intuitive. Things just happen. It's easier, and always it can be like that. Even if you're in a situation where, again, if it's writing a story, if you actually, if there's a physical breaking, you have a breakup, you have somebody dies, or things like that. But even there's ways to sort of to lean into your mindset choices and saying, how am I going to deal with this loss? How
mm,
am I going to deal with this pain? How am I going to deal with this, pandemic? How am I going to deal with levels of conflict? Um, we have way more choices to deal with it than we realize. And actually, let me say one more thing.
mm-hmm, of course.
Getting back, kind of tying back to the education, because I've been beaten up on the effectiveness of traditional education, and yet tying two ideas we've talked about together. the idea of it doesn't matter what we do, it's chopping wood, carrying water. That's the deeper meaning. So if you go through a traditional educational system when they're telling you what to do and when to do it, again, I think it's a terrible idea, but you still have the power to decide how you study that bullshit thing that you're not interested in and how you sort of show up in the world. So you we have way more power of our internal mindset choices than we realize. And if they taught that in school, that would be better. But in fact, what I would do when I was in school is I would draw, I would doodle, and it was fun. It was so like I found fun within the BS
Mm.
containers that they had sat for me, and that was the real value. That had significant value of me claiming a moment by moment experience of being alive in my artistry and my doodles that felt soulful. Um, and yet, what they told me and the stuff I had to memorize or whatever that was the drag that was, so I was succeeding despite what their system, you know. Um, and I guess the other thing I'll say about that is, again, it's not, these are, the intentions are good. Ideas and sort of theories and academia are what we would do advance humans. They're just applying academia in a way that's they don't need to. It doesn't need to be so coercive.
Mm.
It can be totally uncoercive and just basically, if they just basically gave kids a buffet of really great subjects to talk about, to debate, and projects to do, everything would get better.
Yeah.
Everything would get better.
Super interesting what you said about trying to find fun and enjoyment in those times where it might not be so fun. I guess because surely there's got to be, as much as you love to do something, there's got to be a certain percentage of that work that is not going to be fun. And so
Oh, who's determining that percentage?
that's again yourself, of course.
That's right. That's right. So here's a game. Here's a game. Here's how um I always had enthusiasm, but I also had growing up I kind of a surface enthusiasm, and it deepened in my 20s. I was kind of angry, and then in my 30s I kind of deepened my understanding of things. But it was only like maybe 5 years ago, when I was like my mid 40s, um, where I came up with this idea really of this existential shift of how to see things. And so I first, again, I've been doing personal growth work my whole life. So I came up with this idea of going, well, let me look at my happiness. How happy am I? What's going on there? Um, and so I played this game where I basically would track my happiness. An alarm would go off every hour or whatever. And I go, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy do I feel? Oh, like I'm a 7. And then an hour later, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a 2. And then an hour later, oh, I'm an 8. But I tracked it.
Mm.
And just by tracking it, so this probably had, 12 or 15 measures, sort of checkpoints, data points per day. By the end of the week, and I would kind of average of the morning or the afternoon or the evening. And by the end of that week, I realized my numbers were going up.
Interesting.
Just by noticing them, just bringing attention. Literally, I didn't try to do anything different. I just noticed, and that was really interesting. Then week 2, I was like, okay, whatever I check in at, let me see if there's something I can do to like bring up the number. So if I'm a 2, let's see if I can get to 2.5. If I'm a 5, let me see if I can get to 5.5, maybe 6. If I'm a 9, let's see if I can get to 9.5 or 10. A deep breath, a walk around, move my body, whatever. And then once I started doing that, my numbers got even higher.
Oh
So, and
wow.
literally after about a week of that game that I played, I've been on this consistent, like probably I average 9s like most of the
That's
day. And I'll
awesome.
dip
Yeah.
in. Yeah, something happens and I'll dip or whatever, but like I'm pretty consistently at 9s. Um, because I realized how to just access that mindset frame.
Mm.
So here's practically how so I'll give you 3 instances of like how a challenge happens, but we have way more power than we realize. So number one, a micro example. I'm a dad, and my kids, my wife leave the lights on, right? The choice I was making was to grumble, "Hey guys, come on, turn off the lights. What are you doing?" Like cranky dad, right? So, and I would, and then and I try to get them to turn it off and blah blah blah. And it was drama, right? And I was like, well, who's choosing that? It was me.
Yeah.
I was like, why would I choose that? It's not working. They keep leaving the goddamn lights on. So I was like, well, what if I shift that? What if when I notice they left the light on, I walk over, I go click. And when I go click, I let myself feel joy.
Mm.
And it was great. It's been great. So I was like, oh, so they leave the light on and go click, click. So it feels great. So that's a tiny, tiny little behavior change, right? And now here's a bigger one. My wife was like, hey, you know what? I'm doing the dishes all the time. Can you just help me do the dishes sometimes? And I was like, oh, I don't want to do the dishes.
Mm.
Come on, And I was like, and then I was like, well, hold on a second. Who chose that reaction to doing the dishes?
Mm.
So I was
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Again, it's just chopping wood and carrying water. I go, okay. I put on a podcast or put some music, and I'd see it like as a yoga routine. Now I love it. I love
Yeah.
doing the dishes. So that's a medium one. So yeah, I do that every week. A couple times on the weekend. It's like I really look forward to doing them because it's all dirty and messy and whatever. And then I slowly clean them and I organize the way I put them around. It feels fun for me to create that experience.
Yeah. Mm.
Beautiful, right? As opposed to cranky
Yeah.
dad
Yeah.
husband that doesn't want to do it. So here's the third one, much bigger. I had these pains in my stomach. It was about that same period where I was making these significant existential shifts, and I realized, oh, I need to get my appendix out, right? And my appendix, if it bursts, it could be fatal, right? So, but I was on it pretty quickly. I went to the hospital, and I'm in the hospital with an appendix. Gonna get a surgery, but I was like, well, how do I want to choose my experience? How do I want to frame this experience? And once I realized I had the choice, it was like a 2-day vacation. It was like I
Mm.
got some good drugs, and they put me in, and then I woke up and I was like, people are waiting on me hand and feet. Like I don't have to do any of my other stuff. I get to just journal all day while I'm in bed. And I talked to this weird guy who was in my hospital room with me. It was like a mini vacation, dude. So and once that happened, I was like, okay, I got it. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is what we make of it. And in tiny ways, in medium-sized ways, or big ways, we have so much power to really create our world in the way that we create stories for other people,
Yeah.
especially if you're a creative person. So yeah,
It
cool, huh?
is absolutely amazing how few people know that you can choose. It's a choice to be happy or have fun. I grew up with a mother who would always be so negative, and she always chose to look at the negative side of things. Whenever she would like cook and drop a spoon on the floor or something, she would sigh deeply and like, oh my god, this ruined my day. And that's kind of how I was shaped most of my teenage years. And then one day, I don't remember how it happened or how I got to know of it. I just started to not think that way. I just started to, whenever something negative would happen, I would stop giving power to it completely. And I
Nice.
kind of did similarly to what you did with the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I would notice how I felt. If I felt bad, I would just, okay, that's just how I feel. But if I
Yeah.
felt good, I would start to tell myself, wow, I'm really grateful for feeling so good. And my life
Wonderful.
changed tremendously. I've
Yeah.
been so much more happy the past few years than I've ever been in my entire life just by switching my mindset. It is insane. And I can't believe that so few people know about this.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. That gratitude is really significant. And I have a tip for you. Gratitude is amazing, but the energy of appreciation, I consider, and I think you might too, if you think about it, is even a little sweeter and better. It's
Mhm.
similar. Like gratitude suggests just a hint of like, whoof, I'm glad this something else did. There's almost a relief in gratitude. Like, I love this happened and I'm glad this other thing didn't happen. Whereas appreciation is more just love. It's like, man, I
Mm.
love that I have this challenge. I love that we have this conversation. I love that people I don't even know all over the world are going to listen to this conversation and they might feel a little bit happier after having this conversation, or they might go, "Those guys are full of crap," and then like, and that's fine, and we've helped them on their journey in their way. And who knows? And maybe 10 years later, they go, oh, you know what? I saw those guys a while ago. Now I know they're right or not, or who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe they come up with an even better way. But like, appreciation. It's such a wonderful thing. It's a let's see what it's a appreciation is a wonderful sort of word that speaks to this experience of opening and love and acceptance.
Mm.
So it doesn't surprise me at all that you found that, and I'm really happy for you that you found it. And my friend, so as a content creator, and I've seen some of your work, and there definitely is a joy and a playfulness of it. So it's really sweet. I would say that transition from you, from a person that was kind of conditioned to see some of the negative things, to somebody that's been able to really realize, oh, I can actually appreciate things. That transition is very significant material for you to write in a story. So you have
Mm.
some sort of protagonist that's seeing things in darker ways, and can slowly through trial and error learn how, it's actually possible to see things in different ways. So those sort of life lessons are what allow us to tell the best stories that are worthy of scaling to have tens of thousands of millions of people see them.
Mm. I love it. Brooks, this was an absolute honor. This was such a fun conversation.
Yeah, really, really good. I appreciate the invitation, and a lot of fun to be here. Really good to talk to you.
Where can people find your work?
They can go to Brooks Elms coaching.com. They can find me on Twitter, Brooks Elms. Um, Pretty much just Google Brooks Elms, and all sorts of good stuff will pop up.
Awesome.
Or they can reach out to you, and you can put them in touch with me.
Yeah,
But
yeah, absolutely. It'll
I
be
love
my
talking to
pleasure.
people. Yeah.
And to the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in as always. Appreciate it. Take it easy. Peace.